Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're listening. Welcome back to Morning Chickens, episode 4. We're moving and grooving. It's feeling easier for sure. Like 4 weeks ago, I was shaking in my boots on this couch, freaking out. And now I actually look forward to this, and it's becoming really fun. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning back in. Thank you for listening as always. I'm so excited to have you and really excited to record another episode. Today's episode is going to be a solo episode. So just me, myself, and I. Last week, if you did not listen, I had my sister on the podcast. We talked a lot about comparison, the ups and downs of sisterhood, why having a built-in best friend is the most amazing thing on earth, and also why it can be really challenging. I think particularly for women who are just like conditioned to compare themselves to others. Like it really happens when you have a sister. So we talked a lot about like how we broke that cycle, the fights that we had, what we learned from them, and how we got to where we are today. So if you have not listened to that one, give it a listen because I think it's really fun and valuable. So I am sort of testing this out, and you guys let me know if you like this or not, but I feel like it's fun to start every episode with ins and outs of the week or the last couple of weeks. And ideally, when I have guests on, we'll get to hear their ins and outs. And when I do it myself, you guys are going to get to hear me more than I already do. The number one in I have on my list is Legally Blonde. And this feels really important to me. I'm not really a movie person. When I say not really, I'm not a movie person at all. I do not really watch movies. I find them really overwhelming. Just the idea of like starting something that's an hour and a half, 2 hours. Now my problem with movies today is they're like 3 hours long. And I'm just like, you're getting greedy. 3 hours is too much. Like I don't have 3 hours to spare. I can't focus for 3 hours. Like maybe I have ADD, but like it's just too much. So first of all, bring back movies being like an hour and a half. That is like totally the sweet spot. If it's an hour and a half movie, I'm pumping out 3 a night. But it's the idea that I'm dedicating like 1 3-hour chunk of time to one movie. It just overwhelms me. But I have a list of movies that are like top 5 all-time movies for me. And one of them is Legally Blonde. And I watched it last week. And it's just so ahead of its time. I think Reese Witherspoon was like 23, 24. She was so young. And I was watching it through a whole new lens this week. Like, Elle Woods is just like such a badass. I feel like women used to be just shit on for being girly and having like flair and embracing their femininity. And the whole movie is just about how like you can be a woman and like people might not take you seriously, but you can be such a badass and so smart. So if you're listening to this, like go listen to Legally Blonde. And Perfect Day, that song, if you know, you know. The opening song of Legally Blonde like does something to me chemically. It is so good. It's like the happiest song of all time. I'm just obsessed with it. Maybe that should be the intro to Morning Chickens. Like it's seriously so good. So Legally Blonde. Next in, Coco Floss. Really niche. Coco Floss is floss, which I realize sounds super strange. Just being so honest, like until I got Coco Floss 6 months ago, I was not flossing at all. Like I would go to the dentist and they're like, how much you flossing, girl? And I'd be like, like beating around the bush. He's like, once or twice a day. I'm like, yes, like just absolutely lying through my teeth. And everyone can relate to that. Like we all lie to the dentist. It was such a shameful thing for me. Like I felt so much shame that I didn't floss, but I hated flossing. It was so annoying and like it just didn't work and my gums would bleed. It just was not the vibe. Okay. Let me put you on to something that's going to change your lives. It's called Coco Floss and it is the cream of the crop when it comes to floss. Like I don't want to get like too gross, but when I tell you like things come out of my teeth that I did not know existed when I floss, and it's like such a soothing experience. There's coconut oil on the floss and it's just so pleasant. I really can't explain it without you understanding it. So just go buy Coco Floss. You can get it on like Amazon, or I think you can get it on Revolve for those of you who are like Revolve girlies. But It's the fucking best. The next in on my list, leaving a date after one drink. And I feel like this is a power move. And I did it last week and I was feeling so good about myself. Like the date was not it at all. And I left after one drink and I seriously walked out of that bar and I was like, I am the most powerful woman in America. I'm so proud of myself for leaving. Like I did not want to drink more. I didn't want to be there longer than I had to. And I left and it was amazing. And the way that you do it, for those of you who are like, how do you do that? A lot of my friends, and I used to be this way too, they really struggle with cutting a date, even when you know it's not going well. So this is how you do it. The waiter comes over. They're asking you if you need anything else. And you look at the waiter directly in the eye. So they sense a little bit of fear. And you say, just the check. And then they bring over the check. The guy doesn't really have any time to be like, like one more. And then it's over. So I felt really powerful. We should not be spending time on things that are not serving us. So I'm very pro, like, go on the date, feel it out, see what happens. But if you're on the date and you know for a fact that it is not a match, you got to get out of there. We don't have time for that. So leaving a drink or leaving a date after one drink, it's a power move and everyone should try it. The last thing on my ins list is remembering you have free will, which might sound obvious, but let me explain. Last week, I went to the Bahamas. My friend and I booked a trip to the Bahamas maybe 6 or 7 days before we went. Okay. We were so down bad. It's for those of you who are listening that don't live in New York, it has been so cold in New York. And I actually love the cold. I love the winter. I'm kind of a winter girly. Like I really like to go inward. I like an excuse not to do anything. I like more of like the chill energy in New York at this time, but it has been so freezing. It's getting a little difficult. Like there is nothing to do. It snowed so many times and like the snow isn't really cute anymore. You know, around Christmas, you're like, oh my God, it's so fun. And even before, like this is my first bad New York winter. So I used to get really excited about snow and now I'm like, all right, we're over it. But we were just feeling so burnt. We're both in sales. End of our fiscal year is end of January. So February comes around when you're in sales and you're just like, oh my God, we have a whole new year ahead of us. Like everything starts back at zero. It's just really daunting. And we were feeling so burnt out. And I called her and I was like, would you want to leave the country? And we booked a trip to the Bahamas legit that night. Let me just tell you, like it revived me in a way that I didn't know was possible. It was so fun. And there's something so like freeing about doing something and then being like, wait, I'm an adult. Like I can do whatever I want. I saw this video the other day on TikTok where this guy was like using my free will and remembering I can go get a milkshake at like 11 p.m. on a Wednesday. And I was like, yes, like we can do whatever we want. And sometimes I think we get so stuck in routine, the mundane. You're like, oh, I can't do that. I can't go travel. I can't do X, Y, and Z because you just feel like it's such a big to do. Sometimes you need to break the cycle, I guess, and you need to just like book the trip. Rarely do you regret a trip. Go to the concert. This is such an extreme example, but I was just at a going away party for one of my friends. Shout out Mary and Sophie. She bought a house in Charleston, which is crazy. Like for my age, at least. This is one of my first friends that like has bought a home that I've like sort of been like close to. So it's just kind of a big deal. And I was like, girl, it's just like crazy you can do that. And last night she was like, it's literally crazy that I can do that. Like it's crazy that I could just buy a house. But she was like, free will, man. It's crazy. And it just was so funny because I've been thinking about free will literally all week. And then she said that. And she's so excited for this move and just needed a change of scenery and environment. So we all have free will. Do what you want that's going to make you happy, because like sometimes we need like a little life breathed into us. And for me, that was like hanging in the Bahamas and getting tan. Would I recommend the hotel that we stayed at in the Bahamas? Absolutely not. those of you who are asking, don't stay at the Hyatt Baha Mar, okay? Not to put them on blast, but like horrible customer service. It was basically a casino. I think we got 2 waters that were $35. Like it was so expensive and so crazy. Water park, a lot of kids. Great trip. Loved it. Don't have any regrets for doing it. It was amazing. But like, would I go back to that hotel? No. So do your research, okay? The topic that we are going to talk about today is the idea of having 2 different sides to your personality. Okay. So I am turning 29 this week, which is a little scary and exciting. And every year around my birthday, I get like really reflective and emo. And the reason why this topic has been on my mind is because last year at this time, I got I was going to say psychology reading. It's not a psychology reading. I got an astrology reading. Okay. A lot of you guys are going to roll your eyes right now. And I am totally okay with that. I'm a little woo-woo. I'm not the girl that like knows all of your horoscopes, and I don't know a ton about signs and whatnot. But if someone tells me like you're a Pisces and you're X, Y, and Z for this reason, I'm 100% believing them. So I'm woo-woo in that way. I actually got scammed by a fortune teller in the East Village 3 years ago. She literally swindled me for like $350 in a crystal that didn't work. It's not even worth going into the story. Like, she basically bamboozled me. She looked like such a witch. She had black, long, dark hair. She was really skinny. She was in this black, long dress, and we're walking home from the bar, and she looks at us and she like gives us the finger and tells us to like come into her little fortune telling window. If you're in New York, you're going to know what I'm talking about. If you don't live in New York, there are fortune tellers every other block here. It's so bizarre. Like, you just walk around and there's these women sitting in these like really gaudy, big, like throne-like chairs that just park, and they basically prey on people who walk by, people who are dumb and drunk like me. Okay. So don't go to a fortune teller in New York, because she told me absolutely nothing of value, but for whatever reason, I was so bought in, and she was like, want to know more? You have to pay me $350. You have to sleep with this crystal underneath your pillow for 2 weeks, and then I'll FaceTime you and I'll finish your reading. So we were going back and forth over FaceTime for like a week. She would FaceTime me at work. So I would get her FaceTime. I would run into a little phone booth at work, and then TLDR, like, she never actually gave me my reading, and I got caught. So, you know, I've become less woo-woo over the years, but I am woo-woo a little bit. And I got this reading last year on my birthday. And the best way that I could describe the reading is like, she made me feel so seen. I felt like she was describing like the absolute depths of my soul without telling me anything I didn't know. She really was just explaining to me why I am the way that I am. And one of the things that she shared with me has been so impactful in my life, and it's really stuck with me. And she basically said I have 2 sides to my personality. I have an eagle and I have a dove. And the way that she described it was, your eagle is your more masculine energy. You are a go-getter. You like to take charge. You see something that you want, you go after it. And then your dove is a little bit more feminine. So she kind of gendered the personality. Like, you can relate to that. If you don't relate to that, that's fine. But dove is more you're soft, things come to you, you're like more feminine, you're sexier, you let things flow, you don't like have to like go out and get whatever and like take charge. And she basically said, like, you need to learn how to marry the 2. And like, for me, when she said that, I felt like so much clicked for me. Like, I've never thought about having 2 sides to the coin when it comes to my personality. Like, I know that I have both sides, but having her explain it in terms of like animals and gender, like, almost helped me like really understand both sides to my personality. So I think a lot of women can relate to this, which is why I'm bringing it up, because like for me, this really helped me. I think for me personally, I am a stronger personality type. Like some would say maybe alpha, which I don't actually love. One of my coworkers called me alpha last week and I was like, please no, like I'm actively trying not to be that way. But the way that I show up in my career is super alpha. So when it comes to me, I feel like my eagle is the way that I show up in corporate America or even in New York. I'm in sales. I'm like going so hard every single day. I'm on a quota. I'm like very, out there. I'm louder. I'm asking a bunch of questions. Like I make myself very prominent. And even in New York, I feel like I sway more eagle. Like to me personally, New York is a harder place to live. And so sometimes when I'm in New York, I feel like I open my door and I'm like suiting up, I'm like, all right, like got to put on my armor because who knows what could happen on the subway today? Who knows? Like, it's just, it takes a little bit more energy. So that's where I feel like my eagle is. But I feel more in my flow and I feel more myself when I am leaning dove, which for me, that means this podcast. It's my creative energy. It's my vulnerable energy. It's when I'm connecting with my girlfriends. It's when I'm doing Pilates. It's a slower workout instead of like in the weight room. And I think when I think back to when I was younger, like I was almost confused at multiple parts of my personality. I kind of was like, who am I? Like, I like this, but I like this. I love the city, but I love the mountains, like I'm not one person that just loves one thing. And I think it used to overwhelm me at first, but now I feel like it's something that I really, really embrace. I love going to the gym every morning and lifting weights, but I also can go to the gym and like listen to Sabrina Carpenter at the gym. I also love going to a slower Pilates class and feeling like a little bit more in tune with my body. Like both things can be true. And I lean more eagle in New York. Like I'm a little bit more intense, like go-getter, masculine energy, I think at times. But throughout my life, I've really ebbed and flowed. Like there have been times in my life where I've certainly been more dove. Like when I was in San Francisco, dove queen. Okay. I was going on a walk in the Presidio, which is a giant park in San Francisco, every single morning. I had this log in the Presidio that I legit would go sit down on and meditate and cry. I was depressed at this time. So, but I was so like in tune with my emotions and a little bit softer and just like more in my feminine then. And then I feel like New York, it's definitely hardened me a little bit. But I think like I keep saying for me. So hopefully people are resonating with this because this is definitely a personal thing. But I am actively trying to work on like marrying the two parts of my personality. And I think speaking for women who are a little bit, stronger, maybe more stubborn, maybe a little bit like bigger personality, like it's really easy to sway more eagle where like I'm like, I need to go out and I'm control freak and I'm going and I'm getting everything and I'm like, just working on overdrive. And so I have to actively pause sometimes and be like, okay, you need to channel a little bit more softer energy. Like just doing little things in my life, like listening to like Nora Jones. Sometimes I have her record, or like putting on a matching PJ set, like doing things that make me feel like a little bit more feminine, if that makes sense, and like girly and softer. It just helps me get more into my creative flow. And I think when she explained my personality like that, it really helped me understand how to navigate my personality and how to tap into both sides of my personality and also embrace my personality. Like I love that I am more of an eagle at work. Like it helps me be good at my job, honestly. Like the reason why I'm good at my job is because I'm like going to go out and I'm going to win this deal, for example, when I'm in sales, or I'm going to network or whatever. Like that serves me really well in the corporate world. And then I also love coming home and being more of an introvert and like drinking tea in the morning and listening to a record and making myself pancakes. And I love the fluctuation of my personality, and understanding that last year really, really helped me love myself more, honestly. Circling back, how did this help me personally? I feel like when I first moved to New York, I was in like La La Land, loved New York so much. And then I remember going home to San Francisco, and I also went to Colorado. And I just had like such an amazing time in the mountains. I love the mountains. It's like where I feel most myself and I feel the calmest, and I love spending time outside. And I remember when I was on that trip, my friends who are listening to this are going to laugh because I went to Colorado for like 3 weeks, and they always joke. They're like, we did not think that you were going to come back. Like I was going through something on that trip. Like I was so emotional, and I feel like I was having this midlife crisis, not midlife, quarter life. Yeah. Quarter life crisis. It's not like I'm turning fucking 50. Feels like it though. I was just having this like quarter life crisis of like, wait, I'm so confused right now. I'm so happy in the mountains. Like I am so content. Why do I live in New York? And I went through this whole thing where I first moved to New York. I loved New York so much. And then I went on that trip and I came back to New York and I was like, wait, I'm really confused. Like I loved being out of the city so much. I felt so myself. Like, why am I living in literally the biggest city ever? Like, I'm so overwhelmed. There's so much going on. And then I went through this phase where I was like really down on New York, honestly. And I was like, it's just not for me. Like, I'm not really meant to be here. I can't keep up with the pace of life, whatever. And at that point in my life, I don't think I fully understood both parts of my personality. Like, I did not understand the two things can be true at once, which I think that's like my life mantra. I'm realizing it. Like I keep coming back to that every time that I filmed this podcast. Two things can be true at once. Okay. So I can go to the mountains and feel so myself and love it and have the most amazing time and see myself there one day. And I can live in New York City and love living in a city. I can love living in a city for different reasons than I love being in the mountains for. Both things can be true. Like there are reasons that I love New York that simply don't exist other places. And I think for so long, like I wasn't really wrapping my head around the fact that two things can be true at once. And so when this woman who read for me brought up this idea of the eagle and the dove and said, like, you need to marry them. Like, that's why it clicked for me so much, because I have an eagle part of my personality. I also have a dove part of my personality, and both can exist. I don't think that one person is ever an eagle and one person is dove. Like the way that I see it, everybody has a masculine energy. Everybody has a feminine energy. Like, it doesn't matter your gender, if you're, it doesn't matter who you are. Like we all have softer parts to our personality. We all have a little more intense parts of our personality. And depending on what you're doing in life, different parts of your personality will come out. And so for me, like being more of an eagle at work really, really serves me because it helps me to be better at my job. And being more of a dove on this podcast, I think helps serve me in different ways because it helps me connect with all of you guys, and it helps me like be vulnerable and learn things. And, both parts of my personality serve me for different ways, and understanding that there are different sides to my personality has helped me navigate life in an easier way, because I don't get so freaked out when I really like one thing and then like another. Like I love a good example. I love house music. I love it. Like I love an intense concert where it's just like down and dirty, like, Mirage, for those of you who live in New York, like Brooklyn Mirage, like I can really I can vibe there. I also love like the Lumineers and Norah Jones and Mount Joy and these like other types of bands that are a little bit like softer and different. And I mean, I'm acting like that's revolutionary. Like everyone has a wide range of music taste. I'm not like, oh my God, I'm so different. I love these different things. But I think when I was younger, I thought that everybody fit into a box. And I was like, oh, you know, if you like one thing, you can't like another. And then it would just stress me out. And I think growing up is really just like embracing all different sides of your personality and knowing that you can like many different things that sometimes contradict one another, and that's okay. And like I can have an opinion right now that differs in 2 years, and that's okay. And I can like to do things today that I hate doing next year. That's okay. Like, I mean, running is a great example. I was so into running for such a long time, like ran multiple marathons, half marathons in a row. I haven't gone on one run since December. And like, that's okay. I am in a different era right now, and I am leaning into different things and a different part of my personality. And marathon training for me was very eagle. It was like, all right, you were waking up at 6 a.m., you're running 7 miles, you're going so hard. Everything is revolving around like this big goal that you're doing. And now I feel like fitness for me is more dove-like energy. Like I'm working out when I want to, and it's not so serious and intense. And it's just helped me a lot. And so I hope that those of you who are listening take away that like both sides of your personality are beautiful and amazing for different ways, and everybody has an eagle and everybody has a dove. And the more that you can marry the two, the better your life gets and the more that you understand yourself. So that is what I will leave you with today. Thank you very much for listening. As always, I'm so appreciative that you're here. Morning Chickens podcast every other Monday morning. Thanks for joining. See you next time. A dove, an eagle, and a chicken all in one. I'm just like a bird girl, I guess, you know?